Hi, I'm Teo Nikolakis with Audioholics, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how to build your dream audio and home theater system. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And as always, please be sure to put any comments or questions below. Let's get started. Welcome back. We're going to talk about how to build your audio system in your dream home theater. This is a topic that I get asked a lot, and I know that Gene Della Sala does as well. So we thought we'd make a video and try to walk you through some different options. The first thing that we really want to highlight is really what's your motivation by building a home theater or an audio system to begin with. What's your path to happiness, as I like to call it? First question to ask yourself is, why am I even watching this video? What am I trying to gain by it? And then try to discern, I would recommend, whether you love music and high fidelity playback, and what really moves you. Are you just trying to recreate the experience, or are you looking to relive some memories, perhaps for vinyl playback, and that's your motivation? Or are you looking for that home theater experience, and you love being in a theater and you really want to bring that home? And is this primarily for you, or are you trying to move along this journey for some family members or perhaps for entertaining purposes? And I think that understanding your motivation and values will really go a long way to determine what strategy is going to ultimately be the best fit for you. So the next topic is helping you identify what you like and what you don't. It can be a really complicated and even confusing landscape. And I think that I would oftentimes advocate and suggest is to hone in on figuring out what your tastes and preferences are. Maybe you know that already, maybe you don't. So here are some questions and guidelines. Number one is, what again are you after? Are you after two-channel or multi-channel music? Because that will lead you down a certain path. Or are you into home theater and therefore you're going to be setting up a lot of different speakers? So understanding your listening preference is really key, because that will set the stage for the audio gear and setup that will make the most sense for you. And then talk about a little bit such as the speaker driver technologies. And there's really a variety, and they have their pros and cons. Are you looking for a traditional speaker that has traditional drivers with the cones and a tweeter? Or are you looking for something that has a horn or compression driver? Do you really love those dynamics of something like a Klipsch or a JBL synthesis that's going to deliver? Or do you like an electrostatic speaker like a Martin Logan? Electrostatic speakers are magic, but the con is you really need to be in that sweet spot for that incredibly holographic experience. Or is a Magnaplanar speaker more within your taste and fit? And Magnaplanars are amazing. They create an incredibly deep and wonderful soundstage. So there are pros and cons to each of these speaker technologies, and figuring out again what your taste is and what you prefer will help you determine your strategy. Then I would say shape and size of the speaker. Do you prefer something that's a full range speaker to be able to play a lot of low notes? Or are you looking for something that's smaller in a bookshelf? Do you need something that's freestanding so you can position it in the room, or something that's aesthetic and architectural that you're going to install in wall? And then there's the intangibles. As much as we like to say it, is it an aesthetic statement that you're looking to make? Is something like a Focal and its unique design really grab you? Or are you looking for a B&W Nautilus to just make this artistic statement? And then how about that bass? Are you looking for a full range speaker that's able to really dig down deep into the audio spectrum? Or do you say, no, I want to have a full range speaker plus subwoofers, or I want to have monitors or bookshelf speakers plus a subwoofer or multiple subs? So determining that will be an important part. Then the listening room. We oftentimes don't talk about that enough, but the listening room absolutely affects the sound of your entire setup. So think about, is this going to be a dedicated home theater, or is it going to be a multi-purpose lifestyle that's going to have different purposes or functions in the room? Or is it, hey, I'm turning a living room into my listening room, or a bedroom into my listening room? All these really play a role, because it'll determine whether you have freedom to do whatever you want in the room, or if you have constraints. And part of those constraints involve, are you going to be able to put room treatment in there to make the room sound as great as possible to really bring out the most of your gear? Then think about sources. Gee, am I going to be playing vinyl or reel-to-reel, so really analog sources? Or perhaps, no, I'm a digital-only person, or digital-only, UHD 4K Blu-ray, so I want highest fidelity. Or I'm okay with streaming, but no, I want high-res music, or I'm going to be using music server like Roon. All of these different answers are going to really determine the type of gear that's going to make the most sense for your setup. Then, room correction. Room correction is such an essential part of any audio strategy, and we're so blessed at this stage of the game that we have multiple technologies to choose from. You have Anthem Arc room correction, you have Odyssey, you have Dirac, Trinov, and there are others as well, like Room Perfect, that I could mention. And all of these typically come at the very least on AVRs, and sometimes you're starting to see them now on integrated and two-channel setups as well. And then that gets down to electronics. What's really going to be the best match for your goals? Are you going to be doing a two-channel setup, or do you have home theater goals? And if it's home theater and multi-channel, how many channels do you need? Are you going to be doing all of those channels today, or will you be growing into them? Do you need Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, or 3D? Those are all determining factors. And then, do you have a preference for an integrated two-channel AVR, or are you going to do separates? And sometimes the argument for separates can be pretty strong, especially if you're going to have hard to drive speakers and need to have separate amplifiers. And I always suggest that, hey, you want to make your electronics pair with your sources. There are some electronics today that really don't have any analog input, especially on the higher end. Those boards need to be added. And do you have any streaming or ecosystems that you want to fall into? So maybe that's Apple AirPlay. Do you have an ecosystem based on Chromecast, or some of the others there? So these all play a role as part of your decision-making process. To help you hone in on your taste, what I recommend is to try to have a listening strategy. If there is a hi-fi or a home theater store near you, make sure you visit. Get familiar with the products that are there. You'll be exposed to some of the technologies that I mentioned, and you can audition in store. You can also visit audio shows, which are a great place. Maybe you have to travel to do that, but it's a vacation or a trip well worth it. And some manufacturers also have in-home trials, like an RSL, you have your SVSs, etc. So these manufacturer direct will give you that opportunity for an in-home trial. Whatever it is, especially if you're doing an in-store, at least be upfront with the store owner and try to build those good relationships about what your goals are, because they're there to help you as well. And then set a plan and some goals. Set a plan. And the way I would define a plan in this space would be, what can I afford and accomplish today? How can I then upgrade my system over time? And what trade-offs am I willing to make today to reach my goals? Most of the time that just comes down to budget. And when you set a plan, what I would always suggest is focus in on your left and right speakers and try to really make that the focus of what you make a good investment in, because between your speakers and your AVR Pre-Pro plus the amplification that's driving that, plus the sources, that's going to give you some immediate satisfaction in stereo. And then finally, what are my long-term goals? What am I building towards? With my personal home theater setup, I've been building my setup since 2015. So it's been a 9-year journey for me. I known where I wanted to go. I've been able to do that over time, and I'm almost there. So it's a journey that's well worth it, and it's a goal you can reach towards. So let's talk about some factors to think about as you're going through that. Is different components have different life cycles, and this may play into part of your strategy. The first thing to be aware of is technology changes in AVRs, preamp processors. Those change the fastest, so that gear becomes outdated quicker than anything else. My recommendation to you would be to choose your timing wisely when you finally want to make the jump into an AVR or pre-pro. They also tend to lose their value the fastest. So if you're looking to turn that gear over, to sell it or trade it in, keep that in mind. And flagship products in the AVR or pre-pro do tend to have longer life cycles than the lower end counterparts. And some of the manufacturers also have a history of upgrades for those higher end products. So I can think of Anthem, for example, typically has a 2-tier life cycle where the product is introduced. There'll be an upgrade. Most recently, they did an 8K upgrade to the AVM 70, for example, to leverage that. They did the same thing earlier with prior models with HDMI 3D 1.4. You also have higher end products like a Storm Audio where the manufacturers stand behind and you can do upgrade paths. NAD, for example, has expansion slots within their products to help maintain compatibility. So it's something to look at as you're looking at products over time. On the flip side, amplification technology is really the slowest to change. Even with the advent of Class D, amplifiers are amplifiers. And as long as you have a well-designed, solid amp, that's something that can last you a couple of decades. Speaker technology tends to remain pretty consistent over time, though there are obviously incremental changes and advancements in driver materials and the way the waveguides are designed and what the science teaches and how ultimately all this is put together in a product. So just something to think about in that regard. And then subwoofers are really foundational to your system's performance. So a subwoofer as well is not going to really have that much of a change over time, although we are starting to see now some subs that are getting better performance at lower cost. So some things to keep in mind. Where to start? I mentioned, and I always recommend, that your stereo pair and center channel are among your most important speakers. The sound that's coming from in front of us is what we're most attuned to, then your side surrounds, and then finally your rear and your overhead. So if you're going to make an investment and really put your money where it matters, it's really the fronts and the subs are going to make a huge impact. I would suggest you focus your time, budget, and energy on those, and the rest of it, if you can afford it, obviously you want a timbre match, try to get the same model, but that's where I would try to have a little bit of a budgetary conscious if I had to make some trade-offs. And then finally, let's look at some purchasing strategies. This is an important point. I think that there are 6 main avenues, although there are others, where someone can really set a long-term plan, both in the short term and the long term, I should say, to buy gear. I always advocate buying new from an authorized reseller or direct from the manufacturer. You may know, if you've been here on Audioholics, that we also have authorized partners where they're vetted resellers and you can purchase products through them, and then those purchases also support Audioholics. That's always disclosed. And it's really the brands that we also review, so you have some measurements, benchmarks, and experience that's independent that can tell you a little bit about those products. The second that I'll talk about is demo gear. Then there's typically a trade-in or trade-up program, so that's something you might want to explore. Obviously sales, refurbished, used, and there's pros and cons to each. I will simply highlight, beware of these online gray market resellers and avoid them at all costs. Even though they may say they're giving you a new product at a 50% discount, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. So always check the manufacturer's website on who is considered an authorized reseller. So let's talk about authorized resellers. Again, try to purchase authorized resellers and direct only. That way you're guaranteed factory new A-stock products. You also get, along with the dealer, expertise. Sometimes they'll give you a try before you buy. They'll let you take the gear home on a Sunday perhaps, so you can have it in your home, test it out, and decide if you want to buy it. And obviously you get a good exchange if something should be wrong or you don't like the product. There are potential upgrade programs, and that's the next point that I'll make. And then you get a full manufacturer warranty as well as setup and support. Some of this gear can get really complicated, especially when you're dealing with processors and AVRs, sometimes even speaker placement. So an authorized reseller or a dealer will help you with that. I mentioned about gray market resellers. Just beware, not authorized. You think you're getting a new product, you have a problem, and then you find out you have no warranty and support. Demo. This is something that you may not be familiar with, so let me explain it. This is often something that you find with brick and mortar resellers, and authorized resellers have demonstration gear on the floor. Well, it's used in store, and then they'll put it up for sale. The great thing is it is used in the store, but it also comes with a full factory warranty, and you can sometimes get significant discounts, maybe up to 50%. The trade-off is you may have some cosmetic dings, or they may be some older models, but this is really a great option for speakers, subs, amplifiers, and when it comes to AVRs, processors, and DACs, you just have to be aware that these things might be towards their end of life. It doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means you're not going to get the most current model. Then there is a trade-in or a trade-up program. And this is something that if you have a local dealer that offers it, you may want to look into it. Some hi-fi and home theater stores allow you to trade your gear up. Now, the caveat is that gear typically needs to be within 1 year, and it needs to be in like new condition, but that dealer will give you a full purchase credit towards an upgrade to something else. So for example, you can afford bookshelf speakers this year. Hey, if I only had $1,000 more, I'd be able to get that model. You buy the speakers this year, then you trade them in, and then the manufacturer, or rather the dealer, will give you full credit of your purchase price, and then all you have to do is pay the difference for the next model. So it's really a great program. So it's a great way to enjoy today while upgrading tomorrow, and then you get to experience those products in your home and refine your taste. And by the way, it's also just such a great way to support local resellers and build great relationship. Then of course, sales. High-end audio gear, just to be clear, rarely sees sales. So that's something just to be aware of. There are some Black Friday deals. Some manufacturers do offer that in rare instances. We happened to see that this past year, for example, with the Anthem AVM90. RSL had great Black Friday deals with some speakers. So my advice simply is grab them if you see them, if it's a product that you want, because they're few and far between. Some manufacturers do run sales. They're oftentimes just once or twice a year at specific points. Then there's Refurbished. Refurbished, if you're not familiar with it, is sometimes called B-stock, but it's a product that may have had an issue, was returned, may even have been used in a trade show at some point by a manufacturer. So the manufacturer will then repair the unit, or really they'll resell it at a discount, sometimes as high as 50%. You typically, however, get a limited warranty, not a full manufacturer warranty with the Refurbished, and experiences with refurbs vary, and you'll hear different things from folks online. I advocate very strongly, if you in any way, shape, or form consider refurb gear, get it only from an authorized reseller. So that's something to be aware of. Then there's used. Used says it all. Lots of reputable sites are available for audio, and really great communities. So AudioGone, US Audio Mart, AVS Forum Marketplace, and even eBay. Always follow best practices. So whatever's recommended by the site to protect you as the buyer, including looking at the seller history and reputation, feedback, escrow style payments, so you're not giving your money out and losing in case something goes wrong, and just make sure you have the appropriate protections. Estate sales can sometimes just be gold for buying used gear. Something to keep in mind. And then the pro, again, wide variety of vintage and new gear may be available with used market, but the con is your mileage may vary. Some final thoughts. Whatever you do, just have fun in the process. The audio hobby is so much fun and has so much to offer. And we're gonna make mistakes, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. I bought this speaker, I should have had that. I bought this processor, then I like this one better. You're gonna figure out your tastes and what you like and don't like over time, and be open to that. So be available to read the online magazines, Audioholics chief among them, to give you an idea about what's out there and what gives you good bang for the buck, value, and where the measurements and manufacturer claims coincide or don't. And ultimately, it's really about your enjoyment with music or movies. It doesn't matter what somebody online thinks or doesn't think. Are you happy with your purchase? Are you happy with your setup? And are you enjoying it? So hopefully that was helpful, and I would love to hear what your thoughts and comments, your successes and your failures as you've been building your dream setup, if you could offer those in the section below. And don't forget our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You'll get direct access to us, you can ask questions, and you can even suggest topics for future programs. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this mini segment and it helps you build your dream system. And until next time, keep listening.